The second player trade this week, many more ahead, just went down. Per your favorite insider, the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, receive cornerback Trent McDuffie. The Chiefs receive the 29th overall pick this April, a 5th and 6th rounder in this draft, and a 2027 third round pick. Hayden, these are two, let's say, Super Bowl contenders over the last few seasons. And possibly, is this trade kind of taking them in two opposite directions?
Well, definitely. The Rams are all in. When you trade a first round pick for a corner and then you're going to pay him $30+ million, which is definitely a gamble on the future, you're all in this year, as the Rams should be. So I think there is huge stakes on this trade. I absolutely love this just from an outsider's perspective. I think it's really smart for the Chiefs side. But if this trade would have happened to any other team pretty much across the league, I would think that the amount of capital they sent away is ridiculous. But for the Rams, if you increase your Super Bowl odds by 2 percentage points, I love the trade. Why not? This is like the year that's all going to come together. They're all in for this year, and Trent McDuffie is going to make the 2026 Rams a lot better versus what the cornerback situation that they were trotting out last year.
Just some logistics to this. Right now, Trent McDuffie will play on his 5th-year option. In the next coming days, obviously the trade cannot be official until the league year starts. He'll get a new contract worth $30+ million per year.
Yes.
Be the new NFL's cornerback one. Now, I think you can argue, is he the NFL's quarterback one?
No.
Because he has been both an outside to inside to inside to outside slot player. And he's awesome. He's been fantastic in Steve Spagnuolo's defense. I will say, just because of his size and, let's say, natural lack of length, I do feel like some big, tall, physical receivers can give him some issues. However, as you mentioned, we just watched this LA Rams team trot out the likes of Emmanuel Forbes, Ahkello Witherspoon, Darius Williams, and they disintegrated towards the end of the season. I mean, their secondary was absolutely brutal. So what does Les Snead typically do when there's like a major issue that he spots? They get aggressive, and they get aggressive for veterans. I mean, go back to the trade of Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford, despite previously making a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Then you made the move in the same year of Jalen Ramsey and Marcus Peters at this position. They tried to trade for Brian Burns, then went all in the draft on the defensive line the next 2 years. And then again, now after watching the defensive backfield, name of the cornerback spots disintegrate, now you go and get Trent McDuffie and reunite him with his college coach and Jimmy Lake out of Washington.
Yeah, speaking of Lake, Quentin Lake is the nickel back, and I do agree with you that Trent McDuffie, I think, is best in that slot position, but the Rams, they do so much on the back half, and communication's so big for their zone defense that I do think that he's going to be a very good outside corner, and they can kind of change the picture up with their safeties, which they love.
Yeah,
We're
multiple
kind of
safety
leaving
sets for them. Yep,
and leaving McDuffie on one side. It's like, all right, you're responsible for that half, and then we'll kind of change up the picture on the other half to keep things interesting. But he'll slide into the slot. Though, just looking at the roster, like Quentin Lake's going to be that nickel back, and Trent McDuffie's going to play on the outside, which I don't think he's at Patrick Surtain level. He's definitely a tier below that, but a really quality player. And it's hard to find an upgrade at the cornerback spot in the draft at 29th overall. And there's not that many good corners on the market. So I do think that the Trent McDuffie trade does make a lot of stylistic sense for the Rams. And then even Kobe Durant, their other corner, he's a free agent. Like, they're still missing another corner. Like, this is the first move that they're going to make at the cornerback spot.
Speaking of still maybe needing another cornerback, they still own pick number 13 and pick 61 and pick 93. Then you jump all the way down to 207, 231, so on and so forth. But yeah, they still have that first rounder coming from the Atlanta Falcons when the Falcons made that move up for James Pierce last offseason. But at the same time, the Rams' longtime right tackle and Rob Havenstein has retired. There are some other needs and maybe wants that this team could both attack offensively and defensively. It's interesting. I think Trent McDuffie was doing some type of service activity prior to this past season. He went to like a children's school. He was asked by a kid where he would like to play other than Kansas City. And he said it would be the LA Rams. He gets his wish here. It's a fascinating team that Hayden, I think a lot of people have said, well, either at 13 or 29, the Rams could take their quarterback of the future in Ty Simpson. To me, this eliminates that thought entirely. And this is solely focused on the window that they still currently have with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, you're going 1 year at a time with Matthew Stafford. Daniel Jeremiah had an interesting quote on his podcast saying that, like, the opinion around the league is that when Stafford leaves, there's a decent chance, is the words he used, that Sean McVay also leaves. Like, this is as all in as it gets. They were pretty much a muffed punt away from
Yep.
winning the Super Bowl this last year. So this is an all-in move, as it should be. This is like the exception of the rule. I like this move a lot more than like the Sauce Gardner move, where the Colts like felt like they were like ready to win the Super Bowl. But in the middle of the season, you can start seeing things kind of pull apart where you have this foundation. Les Snead's earned the right to go all in.
Well, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs because they're in a different position than they typically are. They're picking number 9 overall. Now they also own pick 29, then also pick 40. So 3 in the top 40, 4 in the top 75 overall picks. This isn't new for them. You know, they moved off of Tyreek Hill in the 2022 offseason. They never really replaced him 1-for-1. They still won 2 Super Bowls after that. In that trade, they got picked 29 and 50. In that move from 29, they moved up to 21 to get Trent McDuffie here. This is also a team that has given a defensive back that they drafted a second contract since Eric Berry. They just kind of reload and retool. Now, that might change, Hayden, because as we talked about in the free agency list, they have a ton of them at multiple spots. I mean, you can look at Jalen Watson, who's a corner, Brian Cook, who's a corner. They drafted both those guys. Maybe they add them. And, you know, with the move with Javon Taylor moving off of him at right tackle, and now this move to free up $13.6 million, maybe they can keep someone like Leo Chanel. Maybe they don't have to cut someone like Drew Tranquil. So I'm very intrigued to see what the Chiefs do, being in a position that they aren't typically when it comes from a draft capital territory.
I love this trade for the Chiefs. They're in a prime spot to develop a cornerback at 29th overall or 40th overall. That's the Colton Hoods. There's the kind of nickel corner out of Arizona who I really like, who might be a second round pick. Avion Terrell. There's a bunch of guys.
Or at number 9, they could take the top corner they
lane.
wanted to in the entire class.
Absolutely. And I think just the history, and this is where Steve Spagnuolo deserves all the credit in the world. That dude drafts somebody out of nowhere and turns him into a massive, massive asset. Obviously, they got McDuffie in the first round, but look at the history of these guys developing no-namers into legit assets here. I think that getting a first-round pick is a good return for McDuffie plus, and they're not going to pay him the $30 million, which means they can kind of develop some of the other positions that they need. That could just mean re-signing someone like Jalen Watson or their safety, Brian Cook. So I really like this move, and I think it really just goes to show you how valuable Steve Spagnuolo is. Go look back at Marcus Peters was traded away. L'Jarius Sneed was ran out of town as well. And like the only reason why they feel comfortable doing this is because Steve Spagnuolo is like one of the all-time great defensive coordinators across NFL.
The last time that Brett Veach had this type of draft capital was, again, when he traded away Tyreek Hill in that 2022 class. They drafted Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, Sky Moore, Brian Cook, Leo Chanel, Joshua Williams, Darren Kennard, Jalen Watson, and Isaiah Pacheco. That range from round 1 through round 7. Now, a lot of Chiefs supporters might say that's his one good draft class, but hopefully he can repeat that since, you know, now he has even more draft capital than he had at that point. But, you know, to me, this isn't a Chiefs roster like it was 2 or 3 years ago. Just watching them, if this is obvious, they didn't have Patrick Mahomes, you know, someone would really need to carry them and make everyone look a little bit better. They've also had some interesting offseason activities to some players that they're going to have to really, really depend on. So this isn't just, oh, we trade away our top corner. That's all we need to replace is our top corner. Hayden, they need explosiveness in the running game, which might happen in free agency. That might happen in the draft. Maybe some offensive line help, as we've seen in past weeks and past months. And then, yes, they really have to retool and figure out which players they want to bring back or cut in free agency along that defense.
Do not discount the $30 million that they're saving annually. Like that does matter too. Like that could be a running back, that can be depth at right tackle, that can be a wide receiver, and not just the starting corner. So you get the draft picks, and it's also just like a little bit of a, like you're mentioning here, like a little recognition that this Chiefs roster is not the Super Bowl favorites right now, and that they might be building up for, you know, the 2027, 2028 future. And that this year might not be exactly what the all-in Patrick Mahomes years that we're talking about. So obviously tough pill to swallow, trading away such a good player like this. But you have to just trust Steve Spagnuolo. He's done this like 5 times before. And I'm sure he's looking at the cornerback prospect in that window, 29 and 40. There's a lot of corners, and especially nickelbacks in that range that I think that they could find really appealing.
All right, that's going to do it. Again, whenever you see a trade go down on your Twitter feed, be sure to lock into the channel. We'll have a reaction to it. And yes, really free agency probably kicks off this weekend with some of the quarterbacks and movement that we could see. But definitely on Monday, we'll have instant reaction videos to all of those moves. So if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. We'll check on the next one.